Okay, hello and good evening, everyone. It is Labor Day, so happy Labor Day to you all. I'm enjoying my day off with my day off clothes and all that. And before the week progressed a little further, I wanted to make a really quick video here, supplemental to my homily for the 23rd Sunday of Ordinary Time in Horicon, not the Heart of the Nation Mass. That homily is not in need of a supplemental message. But it turns out that people really appreciated this message of St. John Chrysostom's 5 ways to deal with sin besides the sacraments. I never really know how these homilies will be received until I actually give them. This one, people really appreciated this. A lot of people have asked me for a paper copy or a cheat sheet or something because they found the advice so reasonable, which is great. And I'll remind you again real quick, the 5 ways are honesty with yourself and God, forgiving other people their sins, prayer, almsgiving and generosity, and leading your life with modesty and humility. And what I wanted to do with this supplemental video is, I gave an anecdote for the first 2 things. I talked about the boring movie with the 2 brothers and one of them lying to his wife for the honesty bit. And for the forgiving other people's part, I included the anecdote about the Facebook rant, which is something I really wanted to say for the video. But I have anecdotes for the other 3 things, and I just didn't have time for those during church. So for the supplemental video, I just want to hammer home that I actually do believe in all 5 of these things as a way to effectively cope with sin. It works. So for that 3rd thing, prayer as an expression of your compassion. So a little while ago, before I wrote this homily, of course, I was having a bad day. You know, we all have bad days. Nothing particularly wrong about that or unique. But I was in that mood where I very easily could have wasted the rest of my day feeling sorry for myself. And that's exactly what I might have done. But I was looking through some emails and, this and that, and I realized that there was someone I knew, and I haven't spoken to them in 2 years, and they were going through some pretty heavy stuff. So I'm like, today's a good day as any. I'm going to give them a call. So I pick up the phone, and I call them up, and I say, hey, man, it's me. I just wanted to say, now that you're done with that thing, with the stuff and the place, I'm being vague on purpose. I just wanted to say I've always supported you. I am sorry that we haven't been in touch for 2 years, but I knew this would be over eventually and that you'd make it out on top. And I just want to say I care about you and congratulations. And he really appreciated the phone call. It wasn't a very long conversation. But it was worth it, and I felt some very real relief in just reaching out to someone that definitely had it worse than me. That in of itself would have been its own reward, but I was immediately rewarded with a little bit more blessing, because in that course of the phone call, the person I was speaking to said just the right thing in just the right way. It was what I needed to hear, and it put everything I was dealing with in perspective. I slept very easy that night, and I don't know if that would have been true under other circumstances. Now, normally that's not the way it goes. Normally when you do a good thing, you should do it for its own sake. But every once in a while, you get that grace of doing the right thing, of reaching out to someone in need, and you know what? Sometimes you are immediately rewarded with blessings and grace upon that initial grace. That happened to me very recently, and it reminded me that whenever you get down in the dumps, to reach out to someone with a kind word just might be exactly what you need to get through whatever stresses and anxieties are in your life at that time. So that's something I just wanted to share, and just a little too long for Mass. For the generosity piece, if you haven't read the book Rebuilt, it's about revitalizing a parish. They say that there is something about money. When you're an individual or an organization like a church, if you hang on to your money, if you refuse to be generous with your money, it dries up. It dries up and you will always need more of it. But they said it's almost eerie. As soon as you let that money go, as soon as you give generously, somehow the money comes back to you. They couldn't explain it aside from, the grace of Christ. I've had that in mind for the church, but also for me as an individual. We do need to be generous. We do need to give, and we do need to resist the urge to be stingy. Recently, this Sunday, actually, after Mass, someone came up to me and asked for a handout. She was desperate, and I had what I feel was an appropriate amount of money, and I gave it to her, and that was fine. And I had to laugh a little bit. It didn't occur to me right away because of the way my mind works, but that day a parishioner of mine gave me a whole bunch of her old records because I'm getting back into vinyl. So a lot of people in my life who don't have a turntable anymore, they'll give me their own records because they don't want to throw them away. It's the soundtrack of their life. And I had to laugh because in all likelihood, the amount of money I gave away was probably the amount of money I would have spent on these records if I went to the exclusive club, exclusive company, the record store. It was just kind of funny that I was almost immediately rewarded for a little bit of generosity, and of course I wasn't thinking like that. I wasn't thinking, here's some money for you, I know God will pay me back. Didn't care if I never saw that money again. But it's just kind of funny because if I kept the money for myself, before too long, I probably would have spent it on records. And while it's true, and this is just one more little piece of trivia, just to show that the grace of God is always at work, I got a lot of records from that parishioner, and some of them are not my thing. I am not going to listen to her records, every single one of her records, all that much. There is one record of a band that I haven't listened to in at least 10 years, probably more like 20. And playing that on the record player, it reminded me of how joyous that song is. That was something. And in addition to that, she also had one of my mother's favorite records of her entire life. And because I'm getting back into vinyl, my mom was looking for another record player for herself. So I honored I did the fourth commandment, honor your mother and father. I gave her that one, so she got her favorite record. And, that's good mother-son bonding, if you don't mind me saying so. So again, we should never fear generosity. When we give, and when we're generous, and when we don't worry so much about hanging on to our money, in one way or another, that wealth will probably come back to us, and sooner than you think. And finally, the fifth thing, living your life with humility and modesty. I'm afraid to say I don't remember the movie's name, but I was watching a movie several years ago, many years ago, and it was about a devout Muslim who, I'm not sure if he was a terrorist necessarily, but the movie was about him, waging war against the West. It wasn't entirely clear whether or not he actually hated Christianity or Judaism, but he couldn't stand Western civilization. His life was war and conflict. He lived to fight and die for Allah. That was his life. And I know that's an unfair stereotype. That is not the way I see Muslims. But that was what the movie was about. So he comes to America to visit his brother. So his brother and his family, they all are practicing Muslims, and they emigrated to the United States. And so this main character, the jihadist, he comes and he is just so agitated by the fact that his family member is in the United States and living his life, and he's trying to rile up him and the other Muslims he knows in the community, and we need to fight in all of this. And his brother eventually just gets sick of him and says, "Look, brother, you need to drop this. You need to relax. You don't need to fight like that here. We don't need to do that in this part of the world." And the brother goes, the main character, he goes, "You're only saying that because you don't know what it's like in the Middle East where we're fighting constantly." And his brother takes him out to the street. And he shows just life going by. Probably took place in New York City. And he said, "Look around you. Jews, Christians, Muslims, and non-believers are all living in peace. And we're all perfectly comfortable around one another. How can this be a bad thing? What is wrong with all of us living in peace?" And the main character didn't have a very good argument. He just kind of reiterated it to himself, well, they're not fighting against each other because they don't know what it's like where there's real conflict in the world, and et cetera, et cetera. And my point is this, and again, I know it's a movie, but I think it illustrated a little part of the human psyche pretty well. That main character, the violent one, his life was conflict. He had no peace. He was not tranquil. He was not happy. His life was conflict and vengeance and spite. He did not have an ounce of forgiveness within his soul at all. And as a direct result of his inability to forgive Western civilization or whomever, because he had no forgiveness like that, he did not have the ability to live out his life in peace. Life of modesty and humility, living with your neighbor in peace, he found it repugnant because it was too peaceful and not violent enough. I think that speaks volumes. That if we want to live peacefully, if we want to live good lives free of violence and anger, it has to come to the price of forgiveness. If you want peace in your life, if you want to live your life well without looking behind your back every 5 minutes, the price for that lifestyle is your willingness to forgive others and extend your peace to them. St. John Chrysostom is a beautiful writer, and those 5 things really work. I encourage them to all of you, that you may allow that spirit of forgiveness and mercy to grow in your heart, and may it result in a greater sense of joy, fulfillment, and peace within your life. Because I do believe that all of those things go hand in hand with an attitude of mercy and trust in God. Once again, happy Labor Day. Thanks for watching. See you on Sunday.